I'm Doug, your Tech Support representative here at Atlantic British. In this video we're going to touch base on fuel injector replacement on the 5-liter V8s from 2010 to, well, 2013, 14, depending on what model. And what we're going to do is show you how to remove and replace the injector on a bare head, because there are a lot of variations to the different model Land Rovers out there that use this engine. So what we're going to do is just take you to the point where you've done the disassembly as far as the valve covers and the insulation covers, and again, differences between supercharged and non-supercharged. Too many differences to list here. So essentially just a matter of replacing the injector. So what we have here basically is a high pressure injector. Now if you're not familiar with the 5 liters, they essentially use a low pressure pump. Normally it's going to run about 55-60 pounds of pressure to a set of high pressure pumps that are mounted underneath the engine. And they in turn are going to raise your fuel pressure to 2,100 foot-pounds of pressure, which means at this point right here you have over 2,000 psi of pressure. So this is a system you want to be careful with. Now in the beginning, Land Rover says, of course, the first thing you're going to do is you want to depressurize the system before you even start any disassembly whatsoever. And that's relatively easy. You can go to your owner's manual, you can identify the fuel pump fuse. You're going to remove that fuse and then just run the vehicle until it basically quits. Once it quits, you're going to still leave the fuse out. You're going to crank the engine another 5 or 10 seconds just to make sure you've completely depressurized the system. And then from that point you can take the lines off the fuel rail. That's information you can look up and get online or talk to people on the forums, or even just invest in a service manual if you're going to do your own work. So at that point then you're going to take it down to this, where we're ready to remove the fuel injector. Now, two things I want to mention is there is a Teflon seal mounted on the bottom of these that if you're going to reuse the old injector, you're going to have to remove the nylon seal, and we're going to show you that in a minute. And the other thing that Land Rover recommends, again, is these retainers that hold them in place once the fuel rail is in. And from there, they say you want to keep the same retainer with the injector if you're reusing the old injectors. In this case, we're actually going to be looking at replacement. In most cases, you're going to replace them. You're not going to reuse them. So we remove the retainer, and then we have the special tool. And I do strongly recommend using this as opposed to trying to get underneath and remove. This is simply pushed in place, but you really don't want to try to pry on it, or you might end up doing damage below. So you're going to use this puller, which is essentially just a small slide hammer. And these jaws at the bottom will spread, and you're going to seat the tool against the top, which will get you lined up in that groove, and then push this collar down to lock it in. So the top essentially just acts as a small slide hammer. So we're just going to very gently, we'll pop that up. Now of course, if you're pulling up a used injector and you've got varnish buildup on the bottom, you're going to need a little bit more force to take it off, but it will come. And you're going to just simply raise that collar, split the jaws, and remove that. Now, this is the nylon ring that I was talking about. Land Rover states if you're going to just replace that ring, you actually have an installation tool and a resizer. The installation tool just seats over the end of the injector, and you're going to slide the new ring over, and that of course will spread the ring. So once the ring is in place, you have a sizing tool. Now this tool is labeled number 1 and number 2. So number 1 will slide over the end and bring the size of the O-ring down to a certain point, and then you flip it around, number 2 being just a little bit smaller, and then that's going to run over the top of that, and now you're sized for the reinstallation. Again, just that easy, and really just the next step is to install the new injector and put your vehicle back together. So now we're ready to install this injector. Now when you get a new fuel injector, it's already going to come with the Teflon seal already on the end, and it should already be sized. We're going to take the protective ends off, and then now Land Rover recommends, if you're reusing the old injectors, if you're just taking them out to do new seals and whatnot, make sure that you use the retainer that was on that particular injector. They should stay together. They're basically stating that there may be a mated, or just the fact that it's sized to fit that injector. You want to reuse the old one. In the case of the new ones, I usually recommend get the new retainers. They install very easily. They essentially just slide over the top of the injector. You can push that down, spread them a little bit, and so that's what your installed retainer is going to look like. Now, the other thing I like to do, and I've been doing this with fuel injectors over the years and the fuel rails, take some clean Vaseline, nothing that dirty that you've used for engine work and whatnot, just a very, very light coating, and you're going to rub your fingers on the O-ring on the top, and then just a little bit on the Teflon seal on the bottom, and that sort of gives you a little bit more protection from ripping that Teflon seal when you install. Now, in regard to installing the tool, there is a ridge right there on the injector itself. We're going to take that retainer back off, because I just wanted to show you how they go on, because we're actually going to really install it once it's installed in the head. And then, of course, the removal tool will also act as an installation tool. So we want to wrap that around that, essentially so that the little tangs inside the tool are going to grab around the top of the injector, and then slide that down to lock it in place. So then what you're going to do too, you have to remember your orientation when you remove the injector from off the head, as far as where your connector is. Now, in this case, we have a brand new head. I really don't have the orientation here in front of me, but as far as the installation, I'm just going to seat that very gently and then just tap in place. Lift and separate. Double check just to make sure no damage to the O-ring. Again, we just got a nice light coating on there. So then at this point, then you can slide your new retainer on. We'll drop that in place, and now you're ready to reassemble. So that's essentially all that's necessary, and we have been running into a lot of calls on these injectors, either due to electrical or just basically getting restricted on top from varnish buildup and whatnot. And because of all the differences on the 5 liters as far as supercharged and non-supercharged, you're just basically going to follow your procedure the way you took it apart. Just reverse everything, okay? So that's essentially it. Very easy to do when you have the right tools. This being the most important, because one, you could try to pry that injector out of there with another tool. You probably end up doing some damage. They're very fragile, and you got to remember, dealing with the pressures that are being applied at these, that you want to make sure everything's together and clean and seated exactly right. So when you're ready to change over the injectors on your 5-liter Land Rover, you can call any of our knowledgeable salesmen at 1-800-533-2210, or you can click on this link and order them online. And if you liked our how-to video and would like to see more, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and see more. So we thank you for watching, and Rover on.